welcome back to the Schmitter's Hunter Woods. So today is going to be kind of a cleanup day, and specifically cleaning up the septic area. So we want to work on getting a little bit better layout of everything, now that we kind of know the specs and kind of what we're working toward. We really need to do a little bit of cleanup here before we can really get too much further. So I have the stump grinder here, gonna get it put on and basically cleaning up this area from kind of the tree line there that we have back around to kind of where the trees start there. So we have a lot of wood kind of that we've been cutting on, so we need to get that out of here. Then obviously stumps, so I need to cut that one off, but then there's lots of stumps in here. We painted them blue, so we'll have to kind of rediscover those, but go through, grind off all the stumps, and then once we've done that, take the York rake and York rake all this out, because we'll have a lot of the stump debris. And then I have just a little bit of the sycamore tree left back there. I'll get the otter back there, get that picked up while he's working on getting some of this mulched up with the stump grinder. So it's going to be kind of the objective today, because basically the septic's going to kind of go in this area here, so just downhill from that stump, kind of in this area, with the tank probably going that way. So that's kind of the preliminary idea, but we want to get the house set up and then lay this out and kind of make sure that everything's going to work well together. So step one of that is getting this area cleaned up so we can kind of get around better in here and not have all this extra debris. Alright, so I tried to set up the camera here, kind of give you a little bit of perspective of him grinding some of the stumps. Most of them were pretty small, so he was able to do it pretty quick. Like I said, had to rediscover some of those, so I basically went around, painted blue any of the ones that I knew were there, tried to do a little bit of looking. So got most of them here. We do one more look through kind of at the end, just to get everything set up. So while he's working on doing stump grinding over there, I work on getting some of this, just a little bit of stuff cut up. So instead of just hauling the long pieces down to kind of where we'd been storing wood, I go ahead and just cut this up while it's up here, so that way I can just load it in the back of the otter and we'll dump it down there. So it's kind of just the pre-cut stuff. Place we've been taking the wood, she's kind of gotten behind on splitting right now, so I'm gonna go ahead and hold off on taking her any more wood at this point until she can get cut up a little bit. So just back the otter up and put you on there, so kind of a side view, but got that picked up and back to having him do a little bit of grinding. So once he gets done over there on that end, I'm gonna go back and start working on picking up that sycamore tree. We had one more top over there, so instead of making a pile, I end up just going and putting it in the back of the otter and taking that out, and taking it to the green hole. So kind of work on getting that cleaned up a little bit as he's working on these stumps. I had to take a few breaks. It's pretty hot out. Had to take a few breaks to let the tractor cool down a little bit, running at the higher RPM and everything, and just not having the best cooling system. It was pretty hard on it, so I had to take a couple breaks here to let it cool down as to not to overheat. So this is kind of one of the medium-sized stumps, I'd say, so it takes a little bit longer. It does do a good job though. You can kind of go through and get it pretty far below grade. One thing that we really need is like a rake or something when we're doing this, because all of your chips, even though this thing's throwing a lot of chips away, you have a lot to get covered up there, so that'd be helpful. So here, just a couple trips of me taking some of this stuff back, and here I went out the long way out just to kind of check the trail, make sure nothing else is down. So I'll buzz by the food plot here in a minute and kind of check on it. So Buddy did some spraying there, and really need to spray it one more time, get some of the weeds killed off, and keep that clover growing. So it's going fairly well in the spots that were planted last year. This year's starting to grow a little bit now, so I think after another year or so it'll really be developed. So got back around here to the sycamore and just doing a little bit of cleanup there. So just using the little electric saw, get stuff cut down into a length that I can kind of put on there. Be really handy to have like a little trailer here that would hold some of this brush. It would hold a lot more. Just here at the 100 acres right now, we don't have that, but either building a little trailer or utilizing one of the ones we have would be very helpful. We've even talked about maybe making like a little dump trailer that would pull behind the otter. So just get it like a telescoping hydraulic cylinder that you could put on the end and have it where it's be able to dump. So you could back up to this and then dump. So something not very big, just big enough that you could actually hold a little bit of this type of debris and get it cleaned up. So I got about one more trip that I do right here of getting this cleaned up. So still have a little bit there, but end up kind of getting caught out here in just a bit with some of the lovely Indiana weather where it's very humid out, so at any point you can have pop-up storms, and that's kind of a prelude to what happens today. So basically end up no rain was really forecasted till later on in the day, but storms ended up popping up right at our location to where made for a very wet end to the day. But got a little bit of this cleaned up and kind of show you here in just a bit kind of what we got finished for the day. So after taking a break with the tractor, let it cool down a little bit, he finishes up this maple stump. So this is one of the trees took down, about a month ago maybe. Really getting it below grade, and really it's in one of the locations where it may be right at the fringe of where the tank may go. So a lot of the idea of some of the bigger stumps isn't necessarily to have all the stump. I mean, we want it all below grade, but it's also to get a lot of the roots and stuff really cut and kind of have that below, so that if we do have to dig that area, you don't have this big 3-foot root ball that you take out. You may just have kind of the fringe parts of some of the roots that you end up taking out and kind of being an issue, and just take out small pieces instead of the really big pieces. So have one more stump here. I don't remember which tree this was, but have one more. There was 2 right next to each other. So we have this one here, get it cut through, and then it had one spot that didn't want to go. So got most of it out and loaded that into the otter and took that away. And then he started working on grinding this one out. I think in a lot of these, they were still pretty soft. They haven't been cut that long, even though they've been getting sun. We left a lot of them a little tall. For example, the sycamore that we'll do here in a bit, left them tall, so when we cut them off, you still have some of that moisture, which for the stump grinder really helps having some of that. If it's really hard, first of all, it's a lot harder on the tractor, but also it just makes it more difficult to grind in general. So been following the weather. It's obviously been very hot, so just taking a break again for us and the tractor, and get this one finished up here in just a minute. I haven't had a chance to put like a flap on there yet to kind of deflect some of this, although in this circumstance, in the woods like this, where it actually chucks a lot of that stuff away, is kind of helpful, because
it's not all piling up right on top of the stump that you're trying to grind and see. So it's one of those, you understand that this is built incorrectly, it should be deflecting some of that. It can be helpful in its own right to where it's getting rid of all that debris out, you know, away, and not stacking it all up on what you're trying to grind. So it has its advantages and disadvantages. Here, when you have lots of space, not a big deal. At my sister's, where, you know, the neighbors right there and we'd be checking it in their yard, wasn't as good. So anyway, we haven't fixed that yet, but something that, you know, in the right application, may be important to at least have the option to, like, put a flap on there, like a mud flap or something like that, to help deflect all that stuff that just gets sprayed out right now. So ended up with a new drone, so ended up doing a little bit of drone footage here of the 100 acres. Been following along with the GoPro stuff. Obviously, they discontinued their drone several years ago now, and looks like they maybe pushed an update that bricked some of them. Been looking into a resolution for that, but ended up getting a new drone kind of in the meantime to play with. We're going to use it. You're going to see this shot a lot when we start doing some layout. So basically I want to do essentially that shot there with the septic, and basically what the idea is once we have all this cleaned up, we'll be able to take this picture, do some layout of specifically where the septic's going to go, and then in relation, so it may actually be closer to this shot here where you can see where the building will go and the septic, and do a little bit of layout. So like that'll probably be one of the pictures that we submit to the county once we have this laid out and cleaned up a little bit more. So trying to do a little bit more of this to kind of give them a clearer idea of where we want the septic, and I think we're going to lean towards a presby to where you actually have a sand field and then a tank. But in the meantime, a little bit of an overhead shot and just kind of showing you know, him working this stump down. Be very interesting to try the stump grinder on the 62 horsepower wise. It's right in its range. We have the 3-point hitch and everything for it. We just haven't put it on there yet. But it'd be very fascinating to see if like the crawl function would work well, and just a little bit higher horsepower would be better for that stump grinder. If you get in too much of a bind, you can kill the tractor. The kind of clutch plate on it isn't rated, I guess, low enough for the, you know, we're kind of using a 30 horsepower thing for on a 25 horsepower tractor, so it's right at its limit, but it's not too bad. So I'm working on getting the sycamore stump cut off there, and then Dad was back. You notice the tractor back there, just popping a couple of really old stumps out of the ground, just kind of getting those cleaned up while we had the tractor going. But get the sycamore cut off closer to the ground, have a little bit less to cut off, obviously. So we want it as close as possible without running the chainsaw in the dirt. So we get the 46 out with the 30-inch bar and get most of that. So we basically just have to kind of chase it in a circle to get that cut off, and get really close, and obviously start getting a little bit of rain here. So the time lapse is a little varied from here on out because trying not to get the camera wet and everything, since I've been using an external battery, it can't get wet while the GoPro can. So dried up again for a bit here, so get the sycamore stump cut into a couple pieces, just to make some firewood out of that while he's grinding those down, and it starts raining again, and it's one of those things. We go ahead while we have the grinder here. We just finish grinding while it rains. So from it being so hot and everything, we're already pretty much soaked through anyway. So the rain was actually kind of refreshing, brought in a little bit of a cool front. So you can see getting that cut down. So we do just finish that up. And but with all the rain, we don't get to the mowing or the York rake, because by the end everything was mud. We got a couple tenths of an inch of rain in that period from the couple of showers that went through. So just kind of made for a wet, muddy end to the day. And you can see, as long as you're not taking really big bites, the tractor does just fine, but as soon as you try to take too big of a bite, it bogs down. So here's kind of what we got done. So we got all the stumps ground off, so we had a couple more past that sycamore that were small. Got all those done. Have a small pile of stuff there that will get cleaned up, but you can kind of see everything's muddy, so no sense in getting the York rake out and just making more mess. So thank you for watching. We'll be back out here once it dries up to York rake, bush hog, and really get that area cleaned up and do a little bit of staking to see where things are really going to lie. So hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.